Should be good. Cool. Alrighty. Well, so unfortunately, Tim isn't here to lead the rigmarole, but we're live here with a special episode of About the Cards podcast live today on YouTube. As always, with me at Junkwax Twins. The wife is co-hosting tonight, today, to fill in with Tim's role.
Hey guys.
And we got Ben Wilson naturally at Our Trading Cards, and today with Susan at Yanks Chick. How's it going?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course. Naturally, podcast on iTunes, Podbean. Follow us on Twitter at About the Cards. Websites aboutthecards.wordpress.com. But anyway, jumping right into it. Ben, do you want to ask?
Yeah, so first off, thank you so much. I know we've been talking about this for the better part of like 2 years now since we started the podcast. So we definitely are pleased and honored and privileged and excited to have a hobby icon like yourself.
Well, thanks for having me. I was, once I left Topps, I was like, does anybody care anymore? So thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about your biography as a card collector. What got you into card collecting and how long have you been collecting?
Sure. One of the earliest memories I have of like collecting cards, buying cards was like how the world has changed kind of thing. So I was probably around like 10 years old. And my mom's like, go up to the corner deli and go buy some milk. And I'm like, oh, of course. And like, first of all, at 10 years old, like, I feel like these days you don't send your kid out at 10 years old by themselves anymore.
Right.
But with the change, I'm buying like 1990 like Fleer baseball cards. I'm like, oh, great. I have 50 cents left over. Let's throw in a quarterback, Clearly those things don't happen anymore. But that was like one of my earliest memories of like collecting cards. I'm like, I remember even like just being in the deli and like flipping through and just looking for all my Yankees because I'm obviously a Yanks chick. I'm a huge Yankees fan. So that's really how I started. It was my brother and my cousins, like my older brother and my older cousins, they would collect cards. So then I got into it that way. And then as I got older and like started having part-time jobs, eBay was, just kind of like really kicking off. And I'm like, writing check after check after check. I don't know if you remember those days of eBay where you're like writing checks out of buying like Derek Jeter and A-Rod lots of cards. And this was, now you're talking like 98, 99, so very early in their careers. And, then it just kind of kept going. It's funny, like a lot of people, when I went to college, it kind of stopped. And I don't want to say stop, but sort of just like took a break because like I'm in college and I don't really have money to spend on cards anymore. But then post-college, it's not like I didn't. I frequented the the old Beckett message boards. So then I started collecting again in like 04, 05. I had my mom bring me, I was living about 2 hours away when they came to visit. And I had my mom like put all my baseball cards in like a big suitcase to bring down to me so I could start going through my cards again. And then there was a cardboard problem that, me and my friend Marie and I started. And then I wrote for Beckett, and I was then I became the hockey, basketball, and football editor at Beckett. And then I worked at Topps, and now I'm just back to being a collector again.
So what made you like the Jeter collector of the world? Really, what drew you to his fandom?
I'm a diehard Yankees fan. I grew up, and now I live here, I'm back living here again. But I grew up 15 minutes from Yankee Stadium, so. I'm watching them on TV. And what's funny is like as a kid, every summer I would get sick. And it's nothing crazy. Like it would be like a virus or like I'd get the flu in the summer. It was like I was one of those kids. And so I would and then when I was 16, 1996, I was 16. So you can figure out my age. Yeah. Yankees won the World Series first. I got chicken pox. I got chicken pox on my birthday, by the way, on my sweet 16. Oh. My birthday's in the summer. I got chicken pox. So I got stuck, not stuck, but like I'd be sitting at home and like, what do you watch during the summer? Like TV's all on reruns. I'd go and I started watching, I'm watching baseball. And so, 1996 obviously is a very special year for Yankee fans and for myself. Because like I said, I had chicken pox, stuck home watching TV. Derek Jeter's Rookie of the Year. My entire bedroom was covered in like New York Daily News sports pages, like the back page, like it was just covered in like that entire season. Didn't know they were going to win the World Series, but I just kept putting up like all these like amazing covers that they had at the time. And I think I still have them somewhere in a box.
Wow.
So you're saying instead of Backstreet Boys and 98 Degrees, you had Derek Jeter and
Let's
The
go.
crew
I had like Harrison Ford as like Indiana Jones on my wall.
Yes.
It was all baseball. It was heavy baseball, but
Of course.
there's a few other boys on my wall.
Yeah.
So, kind of take us through what working through Beckett was like. I mean, they're in my backyards here now, but excuse me, and it seems like an interesting gig.
I was very lucky. With Beckett, I was looking to do something different. I was working at the newspaper down in Atlantic City for 8 years, and my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, Dan, came. We both decided we wanted to sort of leave where we were, and it was, I was a newspaper reporter, I was a sports journalist, and we wanted to move back to New York. And I got lucky at the time; a position was open, and Beckett allowed me to work remotely, to work from home. So it was really, I appreciated that because it was something I needed at the time. And it was interesting. I had a lot of autonomy. I got to, pick the covers, who went on the cover, what was the cover topic about. I got to write whatever articles I wanted to write. And it was great because I really got to know a lot of people within the industry that way. People who worked at Topps, people who worked at Panini. But even so, like, meeting more collectors, and I became friendly with the guys over at Freedom Cardboard, and really developed nice relationships where I still find a lot of those people still to be friends. So it was really cool because I got to have experiences I might not have had otherwise, as far as meeting collectors and meeting industry people, and I was very appreciative of my time there.
Definitely. And it's one of the things that we're starting to see with our current job. It's, whether it's really bad cold here, guys, sorry. Whether it's, being able to go to an industry dinner, or going to the Topps Q&A, or it's not even so much the advance, but seeing friends like you or Mel or Eric or anybody else at these shows, that's more of the highlight for us.
Definitely. And anytime, whenever I'm like, what are you, I do the card chat. Now it's kind of Wednesdays at 8:00, which is a plug. Come do card chat on Twitter at Wednesdays at 8:00.
Definitely check it out.
Check it out before the show.
One of the things, hey, what are you most looking forward to at the National? I mean, 90% of the answers are the people. This is a chance for you to see friends that you really only talk to online throughout the year, and then you go to the National, yes, we get to actually see you face to face, as opposed to just typing on a keyboard.
Correct.
364 days of the year.
Well, it's funny because I didn't go to the National last year. Tim did. I've never met Steph in person, yet for 2 years we've had this podcast together, and we've known each other the better part of 10 years. And if I was listing some of my personal best friends, they were all Twitter friends that I might never meet in person. And it really is fun. Like you mentioned, you go into the National, meeting everybody. It's kind of going on that playground as kids when we were trading cards. We were able to do that in the 80s, the 90s. Now it's all online, and we're just big kids. It's the same thing, just at a much bigger level, spread out throughout the country. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's really neat that we have the social media to kind of bring us together and build that community. So what ended up leading you to work for Topps? Is it just your connections and they said, hey, we're hiring?
I feel like, I'm sure you've seen A League of Their Own, how the younger sister, she gets into a fight with her older sister, I remember Dot, I can't remember the younger sister's name, but she's sort of like, I got you in this league. She's like, no, I didn't get you in the league. I just got you into the tryout. You got yourself in the league. I feel like it's part of kind of like that, where through my connections at Beckett, I met a lot of people. Sure. And there was a job opening at Topps. I happened to see it on LinkedIn and reached out to one of my connections and was just like, hey, I see this job opening. I'm interested. So they said, well, why don't you come in for an interview? Great. I came in for an interview. I discussed my love of collecting, obviously, but, it was just a little bit more than my love of collecting. Coming from my journalism background, the job that I was going for, I was actually pretty suited for, because it was an editor And technically, like, the editor of a magazine does not mean editor at Topps. They're different jobs. They just happen to have the same title. But there were certain things that did cross over. So there was part of the editor was you got to pick the images that go on the baseball cards. And as a newspaper person, you know, you're looking for what pictures fit best with your story. So, or the same thing with Becky, you know, what picture is going to resonate most on the cover. So there was some crossover there. Then there's copy editing, like the backs of the baseball cards. So somebody, you know, writes them and then you're just going through like fact checking or going through, as a journalist, like you have to do that for your own stories.
Right.
But then there's also just like knowing, you know, what's newsworthy, which I think is also important, even like, cause you're picking, like I said, picking the images that go in the cards, and just being a hard worker, which, you know, one of the things is working on a deadline as a newspaper person creates different types of deadlines in like a corporate sense. So like in a corporate world, you're like, what's your deadline? You're like 2 months. I'm like, I'll have that for you in 2 days. Cause
Right.
like, you don't work on that same kind of pace. But I think that was helpful. And it was actually, when I started working at Topps, it was super helpful for me because like I had these deadlines and like it was just like a list, like this has to be done by this time. And I would like fly through it just because in my mind, I'm thinking of like, in my old days where I'm writing an article where I'm covering the Phillies, the 7:00 Phillies game. My deadline's at 10:45 and I have 20 minutes to write the story with 50,000 screaming people in the stands. You telling me I have 2 months. I'm like, that's really? Like, what else am I going to do for the other like 7 weeks?
Like,
So,
where's the stress? I stream on the stress.
Exactly. So like, there's so many times where like I have jobs where like even now, like my job, they're like, it's like something will happen. And I'm like, this is not stress. Like I'm not stressed at all right now because I've dealt with like super tight and crazy deadlines. This is a piece of cake for me. But having go back to the question, so I did was a lot of crossover, and I think my work experience and then like my work ethic and my love of collecting, you know, was the kind of thing that got me the job.
Now, was there any, you know, I'm very big on not investing in cards personally because I don't want it to interfere with the collecting and hobby side. I
never saw that on your Twitter feed one time.
I know, ever, right? So somebody
you can
who
still
works,
see his Twitter feed.
I do. I haven't muted it yet. Not yet.
You three are the only ones that might still be able to see it. But this is extremely poignant, right? I mean, you work at Topps, you collect cards. So was there any, you know, you're dancing with both devils. Was there any crossover where you get home, you know, it's like the landscaper whose yard looks like crap and the accountant who never balances their checkbook.
The card collector never sorts the cards.
Right. I do this for a living. I don't want to do it at home. Did you ever get any of that fatigue at all?
I mean, I want to say yes and no, but I also think as collectors, I'm sure you can relate, there's sort of peaks and valleys to your collecting, right? Like there's going to be times when you're like, love cards, I want to buy everything and this and that. And then there's sort of a dip and you kind of take a break, but it's not as though you're taking a break from actually actively collecting. So I had moments like that, but it was more like, now I'm sorting my Jeter cards, or I'm trying to figure out like what duplicates I have, and I'm actually like putting them in order and putting them like where they should go. So I never like actively, I actually never came home and was like, man, I hate cards. I love cards. Like it's still a thing. And the cool thing is that my husband is also a huge card collector. That was actually like how we started talking. He was like, hey, I heard you, this is back in the day. He's like, hey, I heard you write for Beckett. And I'm like, I sure do. And we started talking about cards. And I would come home and he still loves cards. So I'd come home and, sometimes I would bring home a box of cards and we would rip through it and we'd talk about the cards and we'd talk about this and we'd talk about that. And like, sometimes like, maybe it wasn't always like positive things we were saying, but like, there was just like, it was fun because like, here's something I get to share with family. And part of my love of trading cards is the fact that I get to do it with other people. And whether that's like sharing it on social media or sharing it with my husband or sharing it with my best friend, part of the reason why I love to collect is because while it's a personal thing for me, like, because I collect what I collect because I want it, it's also a very community driven thing as well. So I never came home and was like, oh man, I don't want to look at another baseball card. And because really in my house, that's impossible. Because if you walked in, there's just boxes of cards everywhere.
I know the feeling.
So what
I
was it
understand
like?
you two collect very different things, correct?
Yeah, he's a Texas Rangers fan, and I'm a New York Yankees fan. So I collect. I mean, I'll collect Yankees cards, but it's mostly Derek Jeter, and then he collects, Nolan Ryan and Mitch Moreland, who was his favorite player while playing with the Yankees. I mean, playing with the Rangers.
Well, he doesn't collect a whole lot of Series 1 this time around, unfortunately.
So we talk about like not buying cards. We actually didn't buy any Series 1 because like one, there's no Derek Jeter in there, like it's just not in there, and two, there was no Texas Rangers. So I was kind of like, honestly, what I did was the money I would have spent buying Series 1, I like what I call buying a reasonable hobby box, because like sometimes prices are a little crazy these days.
Yeah.
But I took that money, what I would have spent on like a reasonable hobby box, and went online and just bought a bunch of single Jeter cards that I wanted instead.
Nice.
No, that's awesome, and that's what's great about collecting is we can pivot within our own collection if the new stuff or whatever it is doesn't strike our fancy. And in Dan's case, he can buy his one single lonely Texas Ranger
Or
and,
Nick Solak.
So growing up,
I hear that Series 2 will be better, though.
that's the plan, right? So growing up, we all wanted to be on a baseball card. We might even have, some of us, myself included, drew ourselves on a baseball card. And I know Topps and you can go out and have them produced, and a lot of the companies that offer photo services will let you put it on a different type of stock, obviously not licensed.
Right.
But what's it like actually having a card? I know you were featured in both Allen and Ginter as well as Heritage. That's got to be pretty neat.
Amazing. It was amazing. I'm not gonna lie. Like when they told me, because they do it randomly, so it's like essentially they pick a name out of a hat, and if you get picked, like you get to be on Ginter that year. And it's like, okay, first year, it's only my first year, but I didn't get it. I'm like, okay, and then like second year I didn't get it. I'm like, okay, and then when I did eventually get it, I was like over the moon. It was amazing. Like who, like you said, who in their right mind thinks they would be on a baseball card? It's just like you're just a person. Like I don't play baseball. I mean, I was an okay softball player, but like I don't play baseball, so. It was absolutely amazing, and it was so exciting to see, and I'm still over the moon about it.
Is it one of those where before they did the picking, you're in there with yours in the freezer getting it nice and cold, so they made sure yours got picked? Or
If I thought of that, maybe I would have tried it.
It's like going to the local deli and dropping 15 of your business cards in there so that you get the free lunch.
Yeah, I wish I thought of that.
It was neat because we're looking at the checklist that year, and we're like looking at our favorite players or teams or whatever, and it's like, whoa, we know this person. It's like it's really neat as a collector as well when we have somebody from our hobby that is now featured on the checklist right there. And it's such a neat part of our collecting. Regardless, it's fun to have somebody like yourself that we all kind of admire and look up to. Because you kind of have the hobby dream. You were, for a period of time working for Beckett, working for Topps on a baseball card. It's that American dream of, if we just put it in a vacuum for card collecting, you've kind of achieved all of that. And that's really neat.
Yeah, thank you. It really is like, it was exciting, not just for me, but like even like my family, like they were, when I told them, like even they were like crazy about it. So it was really cool.
Well, and being able to take that Heritage card at the show and say, "Hey, could you sign this?"
That was fun too. Yeah.
Make sure you put 101 on there, so they're all one of ones. So I was watching the Jack of All Trades documentary that was featured on Netflix by Sue Stone, and as I'm watching it, all of a sudden up pops you again, and it's awesome. What was it like to be featured in the documentary and actually get a little screen time there?
It was fun, and I like to tell people, because I look like a giant in that thing. I was 8 months pregnant, so I like to make that well known, because I feel like I was very big in the movie. It was kind of cool. There was so much more video that was shot, and who knows like what ends up in the movie, but it was kind of cool. I didn't expect it, it was just the kind of thing like where Stu had his story to tell, and he came around and he was just talking to different people. But it was really neat. It was interesting because, again, it wasn't something I was expecting. And I randomly get from people online, they're like, "Did I see you in that movie?" I'm like, "You sure did." And at my new job where I started last September at like the company like holiday party, somebody looks at me, they go, did I see you in a documentary on Netflix? I was like, actually, you did. Surprise.
It depends. Which one were you watching?
Right. So did you get your own trailer and makeup artist and everything else, or?
No, not that cool. Not yet. I'm working on it.
Well, everybody has to start somewhere. So you have that first credit on IMDb now. Now we'll work towards the second one. I mean, you're a New York superstar now, right? So
Yeah, something
you know.
like that.
So what led to the decision? I mean, it had to be a tough decision to finally decide to leave Tops and go out and venture. Kind of what led to that process, and how are you enjoying the new adventure, the new job?
Yeah, so I spent 5 years at Tops, which I'm the type of person I like to, like my job before Beckett, I spent 8 years there. So it's not like I'm not one of these people who likes to jump around a lot. But an opportunity came about where, it was the kind of thing where there was just more opportunity, more, like I was saying, I'm closer to home, so I get home a little faster. It was just a lot of things that sort of like checked a bunch of boxes that I said, I did so much of what I wanted to do at Tops. I learned so much while I was at Tops. Like that was a big thing too. I learned so much at Tops about the industry, about marketing, about, just working a part of a corporate team, because like working at a newspaper and working at a magazine is very different. But I learned so much at Tops, and I was so grateful for everything that I learned there. And it felt like the right time. And I almost feel like I watched the final episode of The Good Place last night, and I don't know, spoiler if you've seen it, but like at the end, there's people who like, they just knew, like they just felt, and I kind of felt like that's where I was at. Like it just felt like the right time.
What is your view on the current state of the hobby, with hobby boxes just skyrocketing? We're printing more. What is your current take on the whole state of it currently?
I think it's tough for new collectors if they see all the craziness going on. And I think for new collectors, it's tough to join in because they might be priced out right now. It is a little challenging, especially like as a collector, if you're a collector with the budget, which I hope most of you are, because you should have a budget for that. Mm-hmm. It's still a little challenging and tough because like maybe you can't get as much as you wanted to at one point, or you can't get what you wanted before. But I don't inherently think it's a bad thing, because at the end of the day, I personally feel like the market dictates itself. If this is what the prices people are paying, then this is what the prices that people are paying. And I do think eventually the pendulum will end up swinging the other way.
Of course.
That might be wrong. I was going to say, you're the economist. I might be wrong here.
No. That's a perfect answer, because we all have a similar take, right? The market is always going to dictate itself. Like when people are selling 101s and they're like, well, I set the price. Well, you set the asking price, but the fluid market's always going to set the selling price, right? If these silver prisms in basketball are selling for hundreds of dollars, if Bowman Chrome Autos are selling for hundreds of dollars from no-name players, then it's what it is. If it's too deep of an economic, for you to put your foot in, then don't put it in there right now. Hold off and you go grab your guys later. Where do you see the hobby heading? Say, let's speed up 3 to 5 years. Are we still on the same path, or do you think there is a market correction due within that window?
I think it's going to depend on several factors, like not to your level, but I'm somebody who certainly pays attention to like the stock market and what things are happening. And, for the last several months, there's been a lot of talk about like a recession coming and this is happening. And I do think if we hit any sort of recession, or like, especially, I'm trying to think too, like with China with the coronavirus, like if that happens for a prolonged period of time, we're going to see some like global sort of economic issues, because the first thing to go is like, people aren't going to use their disposable income because they're not really going to have any. And
sure.
Some of the first things to go are going to be cards. So I think it's really dependent on what's going to happen, nationally and globally with the market. If we see a downturn, then cards are going to take a hit. And like I said, the pendulum is going to end up swinging the other way. If it ends up righting itself and, there's just a whole lot of scariness and it didn't happen, I think it'll continue for some time. But I just do think eventually I don't know if it's sustainable. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. That's where it comes down to. I don't know if it's sustainable where it's at right now.
Sure.
Speculation is always rampant, obviously, and that's the thing, is what people tend to fail to understand is the only people that care about the values of cards are those that collect. If you were to go to your local grocery store with a 9 page of cards, any random cards, and say this could pay your mortgage for the next month, you're going to be laughed out of the broccoli section, right? People are going to look at you like, seriously? They're just pictures of players on cards. And I think that's what people fail to understand. It's all an artificial market. We dictate the cost because as a group, that's what we say it is. People buy and trade this artificial commodity. What is your thoughts on the proverbial bubble and when it might burst? Do you think that we're going to see this for at least a little while, or like you said, if the economy shifts, 7 to 10 years from now, are we still going to be seeing these same levels, or what would your timeline be if you had to say that bubble's going to burst in X?
I thought, I'd say 6 months ago, I thought it was going to be sooner because there seemed to be a lot more concern about the economy and where it was headed. I don't know if it'll be as soon, but I certainly think within the next couple of years, that's just me. I have no idea again. And I don't know if anybody knows, but I think within the next 3 to 5 years, we could definitely see that bubble bursting. Just because also, like, how many, when it's very specific to trading cards, how many rookie classes are going to be as good as the previous one? With
Right.
baseball,
Absolutely.
you had Judge and Ohtani and whomever else. Like, who is it for this year? Alvarez? Is that good enough? I don't know. And like Luis Robert, like, is he good enough? I don't know. But and then you have, like, in basketball, how often you're gonna have a Zion Williamson come along? Like,
Sure.
that's the other part too. It's so rookie driven in this hobby that if you have if you have a string of like 3 terrible rookie classes, you can definitely see that, like, just that chart, like, going downwards.
Sure. I mean, even you see that in hockey. Yeah, sure. The 03 draft class is amazing, and the draft class with Crosby and Ovechkin is always pointed to. But look at the years surrounding that. There's just nothing. I mean, yeah, you have your 1 or 2 star players, but for the most part, and that's why people don't necessarily collect 2007 hockey or 08 or 09 outside of the 1 or 2 players.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to, like, with baseball, like, before, trying to think of what year it was. So, like, obviously Trout was Trout, but, like, even that took a couple years for his cards to, like, really heat up.
Sure.
But, like, Judge's year was 2017. I feel like there was somebody
Yeah.
in 2016 who I'm forgetting, which was a big rookie. But before that, there wasn't really anybody, and it took those rookie classes to really give a spike to what was happening in baseball. And then it kind of just, like, shot up.
No, absolutely. We had featured we were doing like the most iconic card segment last year for each team, right? Obviously, with your Yankees, the 52 mantle would be hard to not have, despite the fact you have a plethora of cards. For my A's, the 80 Henderson, the 69 Jackson, and then the McGuire and the Canseco. But as we were going for eras, the pre-war era, the vintage era, the junk wax era, there's really defined cards we could look to. We got to the modern era, we were like, outside of the Trout, if you put the modern era at 2000 and to current, what card is more iconic than the Trout, and is that even on the same level yet? Granted, it's a small sample size, but the hobby is so fickle from week to week, month to month, year to year, that you just don't have those cards that stick within our, that resonate over a prolonged period of time. Ichiro's rookies, Pujols rookies, they just don't have that same holding power when we compare it to the 89 Griffey, for instance.
I also think a lot of, especially the modern guys, has to do with it's going to take until they retire to figure it out. Because, like, look at the Astros. You take, like, an Altuve or Bregman, and it's like, you saw their prices creeping up, like prices for their cards were going up. Altuve's MVP of this, and they won the World Series here. And now suddenly you look at their cards after this cheating scandal, and their prices are not where they used to be. So I think it really takes a full career of somebody being in the baseball a long time for actually to figure out how their cards are going to resonate with collectors.
Yeah. So the other day you had a card chat, and it was funny because I was having a private conversation during the day with a fellow collector, and we were talking about a specific topic, which was card companies and their use or lack thereof of social media. A couple hours go by after this conversation, and hey, I got card chat starting in 5 minutes, and we're all getting excited. And your first question is basically that: are card companies using that? He ends up DMing me, and he goes, "Dude, was she watching our tweets?"
Yeah,
I mean,
did.
it's like
I hacked your account. I knew everything you guys were talking about.
Man, it was eerie because literally all of your questions were almost verbatim the conversation we had just hours earlier. So why don't you talk a little bit about your thoughts on are card companies using social media to their full advantage? And if you could just be the lord of card, and say this is how card companies are going to do it from here on out, what would your suggestions be to each company?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because 4 of the 5 years I was at Topps, I was running their social media. So this is also going to be speaking to myself. I think the card companies do a good job of showing off their products. Everybody wants to see what's coming, so they do a nice job of showing off their own products.
Or releasing checklists.
What was that?
I said, or releasing checklists.
Yeah, well, not every company's great at releasing checklists, but there's a reason. I'll say this: there's a reason. I am going to backtrack to the checklist right now. When I worked at Beckett, I was at the industry conference, the one that was at the time, it was Upper Deck and Topps and Panini and everybody. And I was working at Beckett at the time and covering the event, and there was a panel about checklists. Or maybe, I don't know if it was specifically checklists, but one of the questions was why can't we get checklists sooner? And there's a reason for it. And it's not because the company's hiding anything. The reality is because the product is so fluid between autographs coming in and autographs that are going to go in the product. And it's all autograph driven, that up until about maybe a week to 2 weeks, it's still not finalized, because you could have cards that will come in that last 2 week window before it ships, that there's a way to kind of spike them in, so to speak. So if there's a big guy you've been waiting on and he finally shows up, or at the very least, you could spike in redemptions, and they're made, and then the redemptions will go out, and then you send them in and you get your card, whatever. But when I started working at Topps, I made it a point saying, well, if 1 week was the window you can have, that's when checklists are going to go out. So I made it a point that 1 week before product releases, that checklist is going to be made to the public. And I stuck to that, and I think they've done a great job of sticking to that. And that's what I want to say about checklists. So,
we're proud of you.
Thank you. I made sure, because it was very choppy before that, when they would actually get released. Now, having said that, going back to social media, the one thing I would like to see happen with the card company social media is potentially using it more as a customer service platform. People where's my redemption? Where's this card? I have a damaged card and this and that. And I think there's a way to do it. I don't have all the answers, but I know there's a way to do it because I've seen other companies doing it. And I wish the card companies would potentially use it more for, and even if they want to create a separate account, and I think Upper Deck maybe has a separate account. Panini might have a separate account, but I don't think they utilize it to the best that they can. I think that's important too, because it's not just about self-promotion. It's also, and not just about trying to acquire new users, so to speak, but it's also about customer retention and trying to make your current customers feel as though that they're important and that they're heard and you listen to them. And if you're not doing that, then you see a lot of grumpy people, and you'll see some of those new people who've entered the hobby just why did I even bother? And then just as quickly turn away.
Well, yeah, customer retention is always so much more cost effective on a company than customer acquisition costs are. And, I know I'm very grumpy on social media, and I know Yeah, it's surprising, isn't it? Have you met me?
No.
No, they haven't. We discussed
they
it.
haven't. They haven't. The About the Cards podcast is very negative on checklist because we demand to see it sooner. That's all. And you gave a good explanation as to why they might be more delayed than the actual consumer, the collector, would like.
And it's actually the exact answer that Panini's head of basketball told me at the Beckett dinner.
Yeah, I guess I personally would like to see them retweet when they're tagged. Hey, I got this cool new Top Series 1, whatever, and we tag Tops to see them retweet it a little bit more. And
Yeah, help promote their product, if nothing else.
You used to do those box breaks, which you'd have on Facebook, and you give away the hits, which was fantastic because it gets collectors, even prize hounds, that get in there. But the bottom line is that you're opening the product, you're showing it off, and there's some customer collector engagement there. And I thought that what you guys did while you were there was fantastic because it got us excited about even products that we have no business collecting, just because we're excited about something new that the hobby has to offer. And, as a collector, I wish that they would go back to that now that you're not there, and have somebody else kind of take that over.
I also had no business opening some of those products. I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever open triple threads again, but you know what? I'm gonna do it.
Heck yeah!
And same thing. I'm like, Dynasty Tribute. I'm like, fantastic. I'll probably never open those products again in my life, but I was like, while I have the opportunity, I'm opening them. We're gonna do this.
Yeah. Too bad you should have got in on the Transcendence while they had it and opened up one of those limited
It
cases.
wasn't for the lack of effort, I'll tell you that. We tried. We're like, hey, it'd be really cool if we could open Transcendent, and they just
your hand is shaking,
They're like, okay, and then just pretend like I didn't even ask, because I was like, it was worth a shot. We tried. It was worth a shot. I think the hard part, I was going to say, when retweeting people, I try, and this happened a lot, even with stores would show off stuff. I didn't not want to retweet people. I didn't want to be accused of picking favorites.
Gotcha.
So if I retweeted one person and I didn't retweet this one over here, I'd get messages or people like, oh, how come you don't retweet me? You retweeted him. And it's I might not even have been in front of my computer at the time you tweeted at it. It's and so that for me personally, that was the hard part. It was not wanting to play favorites or having people think I only retweet that person because they're a big collector and they spend tons of money, on Topps products. Where in reality, I have no idea who you are on Twitter.
So as a one-off,
I can't even imagine the amount of notifications that they get. Just constant stream.
As a one-off, was there any conversation, and maybe you can't speak to this specifically, but was there any concern over retweeting an account that might have inappropriate things? Obviously, if somebody has an account that's heavy in politics, or somebody that has a lot of foul language, all of a sudden, if Topps is retweeting them, might be seen as an endorsement to a layperson. Was there any concern over that at all?
Not really. Again, it was one of those things where I had a lot of autonomy as far as what I was able to do on social media. So that was never a discussion.
Okay. That just kind of, you're a lot of people preface it by saying, my tweets are my own or things along those lines. But when you're representing a company, I was just curious if maybe that would have been a concern, because you retweet me and then I have a bunch of stuff that's questionable on my page. Somebody that doesn't know me, doesn't follow me, sees that Topps is retweeting me, or Panini or whomever, and next thing you know is that seen as an endorsement. So
we're all adults here. I feel like people can figure it out for themselves.
No, absolutely. And then another thing we thought about too is maybe some of the companies are a little bit more cautious, because there is a company out there that constantly sends stupid stuff out and should not be on social media. I'm sure you probably know who I'm speaking of.
Names! I'm just kidding. I know you're
talking. Somebody that goes on a rant and then deletes his entire Twitter feed. So, as both a collector and a former employee of one of the major card companies, you're in a unique position to answer a question like this. What would you like to see speaking from both a former employee as well as a collector, what would you like to see these card companies do moving forward? And that could be on-demand products. It could be anything that that you can speak to, nothing that you might have been privileged to.
I'm trying to think. Like that's a good question. What would I like to see them do moving forward? What I really liked was this. I saw that for National Hockey Card Day, Upper Deck was doing a fan event, sort of almost like a trading card, like card show kind of thing in Colorado, and I thought that was really cool. I think there are so many events that the companies put on that are very gated. Like it's hard. It would be hard for like a regular collector to be a part of it and get in front of reps from the companies. And I thought what Upper Deck did was really cool. And I thought it'd be interesting if like the companies did more of that. So like it's cool when Panini does their like spring training road show, and it's cool seeing those pictures. But what is that at the end of the day? What does that actually mean for me? Right. Topps does the Q&A at the National, which is cool. I actually like that they do that, but it's once a year.
Right.
Okay. But so when else, if I can't go to Chicago and I'm just I'm a fan, I can't afford to go to Chicago, though I can't afford to fly out in the summer to go to Chicago. When else do I get the opportunity to chat with them? So maybe it's those moments that they could use on social media to host like a Facebook Live where people can come in and ask questions of this GM or the CEO or whomever, or they're doing a Twitter chat, similar to Card Chat, where they're doing, come on, ask me, we have our, our our head of product development here, ask them any question, and then you ask those questions. Or you can even do an Instagram Live where you're doing the same thing. So like, I think that putting faces to people and being more forthcoming, I think would be helpful for all the companies.
Now that would be fantastic, because I know that Topps has asked a couple years now in a row who should be card number one flagship, and they've also asked who would you like to see featured in Ginter, and just the conversation. Even if you already have a finalized checklist, first off, the collectors aren't going to know, and then second off, it gets us talking. That's what I love about your Card Chat is you and I are talking now. Other collectors are talking now. We're all talking about the same subject, and it's a good way for us to also meet one another, and meet new followers and really spark that debate. And that's why sometimes I'm a little bit more antagonistic on Twitter, because it gets people talking, gets the juices flowing.
Yeah. So card number one is legit. I'm just letting you know that. I was running that for a while. Like it was done obviously on the computer, but like I checked those votes and that's legit. And asking for the checklist again, there's actually a really good way to bring up ideas. So like I know they're not. I'll say this: they're not asking for fun. They're legitimately asking because they're looking for cool ideas, or like you said, to sparking a conversation or something along that way. And Card Chat is the best. Wednesdays at 8 o'clock. Wednesdays 8 p.m.
Fantastic. Some of us are a little bit more jerks because, we just like to complain. Somebody asked me the other day, they're like, do all you do is complain? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
Day ends and why.
Have you read my tweets? Yeah.
He doesn't know it yet, but he's a New Yorker.
or somebody from New Jersey.
New Yorkers get a bad rap. I'm from New York. I don't complain. I just tell it like it is. There's a difference.
Exactly.
There it is. So what are your thoughts on maybe one of the biggest topics in our hobby for some years, which is exclusive licenses?
And it's kind of a tag on from a question in chat. Do you think there's too many produced on product lines, or do you think they could scale it back some, or is that league dependent? Or
so I have multiple views on this because I look at it from a company. Like if I was still at Topps, I'm looking at it from a company. I love it. I love exclusives because it allows companies to, obviously have a guarantee. Like there's a guaranteed time where you're exclusively making your league's cards. As a collector, I would like to see a little bit more, and just competition's not the right word. I don't even care about the competition aspect, to be honest. But things Upper Deck does, and some things Panini does, and some things Topps, and they all do their own little different things and have their own little unique spin on it. And there's sometimes where I would like to see that within other sports. As far as like too many cards being produced, I personally don't have a problem with the number of the different products that come out. And I know some people do, because collectors, we have this mindset that we need to collect everything. And I do not believe that to be true. I believe that there are lots of different products that exist because there are so many different types of collectors. So you'll have your low-end stuff, you'll have your mid-range stuff, you'll have your high-end stuff, you'll have stuff for set collectors, you have your stuff for player collectors, you'll have your product for the old school vintage collectors, like, with like Heritage and Ginter. You have Ginter, who's for these like eclectic collectors who like a little bit of everything. And I just think that when people have this mentality of I need to collect everything, it then becomes overwhelming and you think there's too many cards out there for them. But what I like to say is, and maybe it sounds negative coming out this way, but not every product is made for you.
Absolutely.
You got to find the product that's made for you and enjoy that. If that means you're not buying 20 different products and you're just sticking to the 4 or 5 you like in a year, great, because I think you'll find more joy in that.
No, well said. It's tough to scale back, and even for a team collector, I mean, you collect your Yankees, you collect Jeter, and of course, I'm sure he's going to have a plethora of cards moving forward, as all veterans and legends of the game inevitably do. But yeah, it's tough, and we get that question all the time on the show or on Twitter: is help me figure out what to collect, and it's like, well, when you find that holy grail of question and answer, let us know, because it's, even as a team collector, it's like, do I dabble into triple threads and museum and some of the ones that are just hit based, or do you try to skip? How many Matt Chapman autos do I need? How many Derek Jeter autos? See, that's the answer too. And when my closest friends are telling me they're feeding the addiction. So as we wrap up, and have a couple last questions for you. What one question have we not asked you that you wish we would have?
How did you get your hair to look so nice? Nobody ever asks me about my hair.
I don't have any, so that's not really a question I would have thought to ask. Sorry.
I'm just kidding. No, I don't know. Nobody. I feel like people generally ask me lots of things, and I usually answer them. So, yeah, I don't really. There was no question that could pop up to me right this moment to say.
How about why are you so awesome? How about that?
Why am I so awesome?
And why is
make sure Dan can hear too, because we wanted the question and answer to go together and him to hear.
If you, I was gonna say, if you met my mother, she instilled a lot of things in me the right way. So I'll say it's because of my crazy parents.
That's awesome.
Gotcha. Well, and finally, one that we like to leave with everyone. You could have only one card. Which one card would it be?
Does it have to be a real card? When my son was born, I went on the Topps custom card thing, and I made a baseball card of him when he was born. So if I had to pick one, it would probably be that one.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but then if I had to pick a real card, it would probably be the '93 Jeter SP.
Of course,
not the collector's choice.
No,
not the Topps living.
I have that. I mean, I have it, but it wouldn't be that one though. It would be the '93 SP. Like,
of course.
Just because that
card.
Is that because that's his premium card, or do you have a personal connection to that card?
No, it's just because it's the Jeter rookie card zone. I actually, of the cards, I actually like the Topps Stadium Club rookie card better than the SP. But then if there's stuff that's like a personal connection to, I could go. We could talk all day about this. By the way, there's a Fleer This Day in History card that's an autograph. That this day in history actually is my birthday, so I think that's awesome. Really cool. And then there's from 2014. Yeah, 2014 Topps update. That was the first set that I ever picked any images on for Topps, and the All-Star card in there of Jeter was like my first Jeter card I ever picked the image of. So my husband bought me maybe some holiday. I don't remember which one. Maybe Valentine's Day, maybe an anniversary, but the clear parallel version of it. So that card is also very special to me.
Nice.
And then the other half of that equation, if you could trade all of your cards for one card, which one would it be?
All the cards I currently own for one card?
All of the cards in. All the
Does it
chips
have to
in.
be an equal trade?
No, of course not.
Well, I would trade all of my cards for a 52 mantle in very good condition, so then I can resell it because I need money for a house.
Wouldn't we all?
Well, thank you so much for your time. First off, you've been very gracious, and we would definitely love to have you on anytime you would like to come on.
Definitely. Open invitation.
If you want to come on to one of our Wednesday, I know it's, hours-wise, the 3-hour difference will be kind of brutal, but if you're ever available on a Wednesday night and you want to stay up past your bedtime, you're always welcome to come on either for the first part of the show or the entire time and answer all of whatever questions we have that night, whatever topics we're discussing. So,
No, I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
We love you, Suze.
Yay, I love you.
We definitely will see you soon. And remember, when is Card Chat?
Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern,
7 Central.
7 Central, 5 Pacific.
All right. Thank you so much, Suze. We really appreciate your time this morning, this afternoon, I guess now is where you're at.
Afternoon, yeah.
Definitely.
All right. We will we'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks.
Cool. Let me hit this button. And that button.